What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies. So, we're now halfway through 2025, and I thought it'd be a great time to put together a list of my top 10 favorite movies of the year so far. A couple things about this list. So, I wouldn't really classify this as a best of list. Now, some of the movies that did make my top 10 are some of the movies I think are among the best this year, but not all of them are. This is just a collection of the movies I have enjoyed the most, my personal favorites. I also think that this list will probably change once we get through the whole year, but again, for right now, these are the movies that I have enjoyed the most so far in 2025. Now, before I share my list, do me a favor, make sure you subscribe. That way you can keep up with everything I'm posting on the channel, including all of the movie reviews, entertainment news, and more. Also, once you're done watching the video, jump into the comments and share your thoughts about my list, and also share your own. Before I dive into my list, there are a few honorable mentions that I want to share. These are the movies that I did enjoy, but they didn't quite make the cut to be included on my top 10 list. First up, we have 28 Years Later. This is a movie that I really enjoyed, and I actually was surprised by that because I haven't been someone who loved the 28 Days Later series or franchise, but I liked the direction that this one went. I really liked how the story was centered on the young protagonist, and it kind of made it like a adventure film as well as being this zombie post-apocalyptic film. Love the cinematography, love the use of music. Yeah, it was a little different than some of the other movies in the franchise, but that's one of the things I really liked about it. Up next, we have Elio. This is a Disney Pixar movie, and I didn't really know what to expect with Elio, and I think that was the case for a lot of people, watching the trailers and not really having a sense of what this movie was about. But after watching it, I really did enjoy it. I liked the story. I liked the messaging, about a kid who's trying to find his place, and he's, a bit of an outsider. And this movie had such a wonderful sense of wonder and adventure. I really like the animation style with this movie. I know some people aren't really a big fan of this type of Pixar animation, but I liked it a lot, and I thought this movie was fun, and I really, hoped that a lot of people would feel the same way. And the movie, since coming out, has gotten some really good word of mouth, so I don't think I'm alone in enjoying this movie. And last up on my honorable mentions is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and it kind of pains me to have this movie as an honorable mention instead of being on my top 10 list, because if you've been following my channel for a while, watching any of my movie reviews or movie discussions, you'll know that I am a huge Mission Impossible fan. I've seen every single one of the movies in the franchise. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. But Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning kind of fell short for me. In fact, it was a little bit of a disappointment. Not disappointing enough not to have enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as some of the previous Mission Impossible movies. I loved a couple of the action sequences in this movie that I thought were among the best of the Mission Impossible franchise. The story was a little too convoluted and didn't really wrap up in a very good way, but I still had fun with it. It's still that, big blockbuster style movie. And it's hard not to enjoy movies like this, especially when you see them on the big screen. All right, so now it's time for the list. And again, this is the list of my top 10 favorite movies of the year so far, kicking things off with One of Them Days. This is the buddy comedy starring Keke Palmer and SZA that came out earlier this year. And this movie was kind of a surprise for me. I didn't really have this movie on my radar. I'd seen the trailers. It looked kind of interesting, but I was not prepared for a hilarious, laugh out loud comedy. And what I liked about this movie is that it was basically this very basic kind of day in the life story following two friends and the shenanigans that they get up to, but had a really dynamic duo in Keke Palmer and SZA that made these characters very interesting, and really good commentary on friendships. Next up is Megan 2.0. This one is one that came out recently, and it might surprise some people that I have this on my top 10 list, but I actually really enjoyed Megan 2.0. I don't know if I necessarily enjoyed it more than Megan, but I, unlike I guess a lot of people, didn't mind the pivot from horror into more action thriller here. It worked for me, and I thought it was just as funny and over the top and silly as Megan was, just subverting a different kind of genre. I understand the complaints that some people have that, Megan is not as prominent in this movie as she was in the first movie, and I would agree with that. But I still had a really good time with this movie in the theater. I laughed out loud quite a bit. I liked the over-the-top silliness of it, and I liked the direction that they took a lot of the characters. Next up, we have Companion, and this is a movie that came out earlier this year, and this one was definitely a surprise for me. I remember seeing the first trailer and was intrigued enough to want to go watch it in a theater. I liked the cast here, Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher, and they were great together. And more than anything, I loved the premise of this movie, and I like the commentary that it was making on technology and AI, and even how it used that premise to explore, relationship dynamics. It was funny, it was thrilling, and again, took me completely by surprise. I do think this movie was hurt by its marketing. I do think subsequent trailers that came out and ads that came out around this movie revealed too much, because there is this nice twist in this movie, and if you don't see it coming, it makes this movie that much more interesting and enjoyable. Regardless, this one was a fun one, and I liked it a lot. Next, we have Black Bag. This was the spy thriller from director Steven Soderbergh, and this movie blew me away. This was another one, again, that kind of surprised me. It came out earlier in the year, and it was basically this sort of old school espionage type of movie, but also a character study with this really great cast: Michael Fassbender, Cate Blanchett. I love the visuals in this movie, the style, the look of this. It was just very sleek. And yeah, I dug this one a lot. So up next, we have Materialist, and I might be in the minority here, but this one was, I think, one of the best movies to come out this year. It was billed as a romantic comedy. It's not a romantic comedy. It's more of a romantic drama, but I loved the premise. I love that this movie was tackling relationships in the modern age and how people set these really high expectations on relationships, and they prioritize material things in relationships versus the human qualities that people bring to the relationships. So I really, really enjoyed the commentary on this. I love the questions that it posed. It also had a really solid cast in Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans. And I love the look of this. This was just a very thoughtful kind of movie. Now, this next movie on my list was a movie that I would classify as being a hard watch. I'm talking about Warfare. This was the movie from Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza, and it is a movie that I think does a really great job of depicting war and not glamorizing it in any way, but showing how brutal and harrowing it can be. And this movie had a solid, talented young cast that really brought these characters to life. And this was probably one of the most realistic portrayals of war and combat that I've seen in a really long time. And this entire story was based on real events during the Iraq War. And what I also liked about it was that this movie put you in the middle of the action. Again, that helps with, creating this really visceral experience. And so you're dropped in the middle of this battle as things are happening, and the story unfolds pretty much in real time. So up next, we have How to Train Your Dragon. This is the live action remake of the animated movie of the same name. I'm not a huge fan of Hollywood basically remaking animated movies into live action ones, but I guess if they're going to do it, then I think this is one of those cases where it was done right. This movie was able to capture the magic and spirit of the animated movie. Some really great visuals, wonderful cast that brought these very familiar characters to life. And I think even if you weren't familiar with the original How to Train Your Dragon movie, you could watch this one and be completely entranced and taken on this really great adventure. And I think that's why this movie worked so well. Up next, we have Thunderbolts, and this one I think was one of the best Marvel movies to come out in a really long time. Certainly one of my favorite Marvel movies to come out in a really long time. I think it was just so well done. And really entertaining. I actually liked the darker tone that it took, and I liked the direction it took with the story, the messaging here, and I liked that it was centered around Yelena. Florence Pugh is such a great actress, and that was a really smart move. And I liked this misfit band of characters coming together. And I liked that this didn't feel like it was a movie solely made to set up what's next in the MCU, that this movie did kind of stand on its own and have its own story. So we're getting close to the end of the list, and among the top 2 is F1. This is a recent release, but oh my goodness, did this movie blow me away. I said this in my review that this was just a fun, wild, thrilling ride, and seeing it on a big screen I think made a huge difference because this movie was definitely made for cinemas. Yes, the story is a bit generic and formulaic, and you can definitely predict what's going to happen before it does, but it has a really wonderful cast, including Brad Pitt, and it has some of the best visuals I've seen in any movie this year, especially when you're talking about the camera work that puts you in the middle of the action as these cars are zipping around the racetracks. This one was thrilling. It was fun. It was the type of movie that gave me exactly what I wanted. I wanted something entertaining, fun, exciting, and that's what this movie did. It delivered. Top movie of 2025 for me so far is Sinners. Sinners was this movie that really surprised me in really interesting ways, just because the story was so layered. Ryan Coogler did a really great job of creating an original story that blended all these different genres, that had an amazing cast led by Michael B. Jordan in dual roles. And I loved the look of this movie, and it felt cinematic in scope. It just was such a wonderful movie, well made. It might be among the best of the year, not just among my favorites. And also what I liked about it is that since it's been released, I have revisited this movie several times, pulling back new layers of the story. This is a very rich story. And I thought this was wildly entertaining. The music is phenomenal. This was just an amazing movie. So there you have it. That's my top 10 favorite movies of 2025 so far. Now, we still have several months to go, so I imagine that this list will probably change once we get to the end of the year, just because there's more movies yet to come out. And I'm pretty sure that there will be other movies that I do like that might bump some other movies off the list, or I might have to do some reshuffling. But anyway, that's what I have so far this year. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about my list? Also, share your own list. I'm really curious to see what movies you all have liked so far this year. While you're here, like this video, make sure you subscribe, and stick around for more videos like this.